Black Star Network is here.
Hold no punches!
I'm real revolutionary right now. Black power.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig? is Monday, May 15, 2023, coming up on Roland Martin Unfiltered, streaming live on the Black Star Network. Yesterday was a one-year anniversary of 10 black folks being gunned down in Buffalo. Coming up, we'll talk with the mayor of Buffalo of how they commemorated that sad, tragic event and how the city is moving forward in the aftermath. Fox News, including a black woman, Harris Faulkner, not happy at all that President Joe Biden had the audacity to talk about white supremacy during his commencement address at Howard University on Saturday. I'm going to do a little deconstruction and breaking down how the white supremacist network is quite hypocritical, and also show you how dumb some of those people are who clearly don't know anything about American history. Also, on today's show, federal prosecutors have dropped all charges against Andrew Gillum and one of his associates after a jury deadlocked on all of the various counts. We'll tell you exactly what took place there. Also, the lawsuit in Mississippi has had a decision when it comes to that complex, that's court complex in Jackson that largely covers white Jackson, Mississippi. We'll tell you exactly what happened in that particular case as well. Plus, folks, Fit, Live, Win. Folks say the COVID emergency is over, but how should we still be operating with COVID still killing thousands of Americans? We'll discuss that in our Fit, Live, Win segment. It is time to bring the funk on Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. Let's go.
He's got it. Whatever the miss, he's on it. Whatever it is, he's got the scoop, the fact, the find. And when it breaks, he's right on time and it's rolling. Best believe he's knowing. Putting it down from sports to news to politics. With entertainment just for kicks, he's rolling. It's on go, roll, roll, y'all. It's Roland Martin, yeah. Rolling with Roland now. He's funk, he's fresh, he's real, the best, you know he's Roland Martin now. Martin.
Yesterday, 13 bells tolled for the 10 people slaughtered and 3 wounded in a racist attack that took place at a grocery store in Buffalo, New York, a supermarket in Buffalo, New York. Hundreds of people, including local, state, and national officials, gathered in the same parking lot outside the Tops Friendly Market where a white gunman, opened fire on May 14th, 2022. New York Attorney General Letitia James is suing a gun accessory manufacturer for selling a lock that can be easily removed to attach high-capacity magazines, which are illegal in the state. The white gunman who massacred 10 black shoppers and workers in that supermarket, of course, he carried it out with a semi-automatic rifle he purchased legally, but then modified so he could load it with illegal high-capacity ammunition magazines. He pled guilty to murder and other charges and was sentenced to life without parole in February. A federal case against him is pending. Joining me right now is the mayor of Buffalo, Byron Brown. Mayor Brown, glad to have you on the show. It was quite tragic what took place a year ago. How has your city dealt with this, especially in a nation where mass shootings just continue to happen on a regular basis?
This was very painful for our city. The darkest day in the history of the city of Buffalo. The community came together. People held each other up. People supported each other in amazing ways. People are in various stages of healing. We had a 5/14 Remembrance Weekend, activities on May 12th, 13th, and 14th to reflect and remember those precious lives that were taken on May 14th, 2022, and to steel ourselves to be in the fight to push for things like this not to be able to happen again. So it was a tough weekend. It was an emotional weekend, but as always, our community stood together and supported each other.
When these things happen, again, they're happening with such regularity in this country. Essentially, we just hop from city to city to city. And I think so many people have, frankly, just gotten immune. A shooting happens and we go, oh, 2 or 3, 4, 5. It's as if, it doesn't even capture our attention unless it's 8, 10 or more people.
You're 100% right. We're in day 137 in 2023. There have already been over 200 mass shootings in the United States of America. And since the mass shooting in Buffalo last year, on May 14th, 2022, there have been more than 650 mass shootings. This problem isn't getting better, it's getting worse, and we can't be immune to it. We can't be desensitized to it. Innocent people are being killed in urban, suburban, and rural communities all across this country.
When you hear elected officials, largely Republican, offer their thoughts and prayers and then do nothing, when you watch in Tennessee where there's a mass shooting and what do? They shut down 3 lawmakers, 2 African-American, and then pass a bill shielding the gun manufacturer from being sued. When you see Texas, where the governor, Republican governor, decries mental illness, but then cuts $211 million out of the budget for mental health, what does that say?
These Republican elected officials, many of them, are playing with American lives. They are putting the interests and the profits of gun manufacturers over the safety and security of the American people. It's time that Americans all across the country stand up, speak up, and vote some of these people out of office. That is the only way that we are going to produce a change in this country to combat white supremacy, to have sensible gun reform. We need to ban assault weapons and to rein in social media so that hateful messages and radicalization of people cannot be done through social media.
We're going to talk about this a little bit later. On Saturday, President Biden spoke at Howard University, and he talked about white supremacy and racism in this country. And there was a Fox News panel that took exception to what he had to say. When you see folks on Fox News and others in conservative media just blast and blame everything as woke, they act as if this is a game and that white supremacy and racism is not an issue still left in this country. The shooter who took out those 10 black folks there in Buffalo, he was a racist. He was a flat-out racist. The guy in Allen, Texas, he was a racist. Dylan Roof was a white supremacist. The FBI has made it clear that white domestic terrorism still is the most important issue here on the homeland.
President Biden was absolutely right. White supremacy, unfortunately, is on the rise. It is deadly. We saw how deadly it can be in my city, Buffalo, New York. We saw how deadly it could be in Texas. We've seen the death and destruction that white supremacy can cause in many places across the country. we have to take this seriously. It is, I believe, and the president is right, it is one of the greatest domestic terrorism threats to the American people, and we have to crack down on it. One of the families in Buffalo that lost their mother and grandmother, the Whitfield family, they have made white supremacy and cracking down on white supremacy their mission. And I think more people across the country should make it their mission to fight white supremacy and put an end to that danger, that cancer that is growing in our country.
So, last question for you. Obviously, it has been one heck of a year. What is still being provided for those involved, for just residents in Buffalo who still are traumatized by what happened last year?
Governor Hochul has announced millions of dollars that will flow for homeowners, for home repair, to small businesses, for business investment, money that will flow to the community for mental health care. Certainly, this was a very traumatizing event, not just for the families of those whose lives were taken, the three individuals who were shot and wounded, and many survivors who were in the store, who were outside the store. There are people that have not been able to go back to work, children who are doing poorly in school. We have been appealing not only to the state government, and Governor Hochul is providing significant resources, but the federal government to provide more resources. The president came here. He called this an act of domestic terrorism, called out the white supremacy, and resources are needed to help people who have been harmed and deeply affected by this mass shooting in the city of Buffalo.
All right. Mayor Byron Brown, we certainly appreciate it. Thank you so very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
All right, folks, got to go to a break. We come back. I'll check with my panel about this shooting a year later, and also what more needs to be done on this country to confront mass shootings in America, as well as white supremacy. You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. If you're on YouTube, be sure to hit that like button, folks, and download the Black Star Network app. Apple phone, Android phone, Apple TV, Android TV, Roku, Amazon Fire TV, Xbox One, Samsung Smart TV. You can also join our Bring the Funk fan club. Your dollars make it possible for us to do what we do. See your check and money orders. P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037, -0196. Cash App, $RM Unfiltered. PayPal, R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle, Roland at RolandSMartin.com. Roland at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Be sure to get a copy of my book, White Fear, How the Browning of America is Making White Folks Lose Their Minds. Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Target, Books A Million. Also, download your copy on Audible. We'll be right back.
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds.
As an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol, we've seen
We're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear. Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punches!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
Hey, everybody, it's your girl, Lunel.
So what's up? This is your boy, Earthquake.
Hi, I'm Chaley Rose, and you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
All right, folks, time to present our panel. Dr. Julianne Malveaux. She's the Dean of the College of Ethnic Studies, California State University, Los Angeles. She's out of L.A. Dr. Amakongo Dabinga, Senior Professorial Lecturer, School of International Service, American University. He's here joining us from D.C. And Dr. Savish Hill, Adjunct Assistant Professor, African American Studies, University of Texas at Arlington, joining us from Dallas. Glad to have all three of y'all here on the show. Let's start with you, Julianne, and that is this here. I mean, so many people were shocked and stunned last week, but not black folks. We've had to deal with the terror in America since the moment people of African descent were first brought here. When you look at what took place during Jim Crow, the lynchings and the race riots and the murders, black folks just trying to swim, black folks just trying to live. So this terror that is constantly visited upon us, we have had to deal with it from the beginning.
Well, precisely. And people want to minimize the impact that terror has on individuals. Years ago, Richard Wright wrote that when there's a lynching in Mississippi, he could feel it in Chicago. And I think when we look at Buffalo as an example, we look at all the rest of this stuff, our people are traumatized. I have the privilege of visiting Buffalo about a month after that shooting with some of the Black Lives Matter LA team. And the women there were a couple of women who were in the store, and they were still crying, still shouting, crying out. One woman, she and her daughter both worked at that Tops Market, and she was frantically looking for her daughter. They both found each other, but she was still shaken. But we've been shaken. We've been shaken when we're lynched for nothing, shaken when we attempt to do economic empowerment and find, like in Elaine, Arkansas, 200 black people lynched because they dared try to organize, because they dared try to get their little sharecropping pennies up just a few more pennies. And so we understand this, which is why we see the timidity in some black people. We see the Uncle Tomism in others, frankly, those who acquiesce to white supremacy. And I wish we could find another word, Roland, besides white supremacy, because they're not supreme. They're inferior. But, when we say white supremacy, somehow I think we reinforce some of that. I want to find another word, white paranoia, white ignorance. But the fact is that we have, as you say, we have been in this situation being terrorized, brutalized, marginalized since we stepped foot on these shores.
Amakongo, again, Dylan Roof, this shooting, and others. And when you look at these people who act as if, oh, this is no big deal, you're making too much of this. I'm going to get into this in a moment. Well, I got a few things to say to the idiots at Fox News, including Harris Faulkner, a black woman, just mocking this notion of white supremacy, white nationalism, and the hatred that still exists in this country for black people.
It's sad. Not only are they mocking and disrespecting us, but it's also been, once again, attached to these cultural wars where we see all of these issues now that are happening. There is some type of Republican candidate or governor or congressperson that's going to latch onto it. We see the case with Governor Abbott in Texas with Daniel Perry, who killed a Black Lives Matter supporter, getting all of the support. Now, clearly, we don't know where Daniel Penny lies, the person who killed Jordan Neely, but we know that his family has connections to the Trump camp organization and DeSantis, and has raised over $2 million as well. And for his defense, during this whole time when everybody was villainizing Neely, Penny has had time to scrape his social media platforms and all of these things. My point is that whenever these situations happen, whether we're talking about a Dylan Roof, the Buffalo shooter, and the like, the people in power are also gravitating towards this to help build their case and build their cause as it relates to their identity politics. And they're taking this right into 2024. And they're talking about this isn't serious. I'm right here in D.C. The Patriot Front just had hundreds of white extremists, I'll say that, Dr. Malvo, white extremists marching right here in the Capitol. So they are only growing. They are only more emboldened. And the only way we're going to continue to win is to continue to fight them in every way, shape, or form. And we're getting to this later with Faulkner and Fox. But like you said, Roland, we can't let them minimize it. We got to call them out in every single way, politically, economically, and socially, because if not, they're going to keep explaining this stuff away, while at the same time, hate crimes are going to continue to rise, and our community is continually #1 for hate crimes targets in this country.
Pamela, this is video here of those racists marching in D.C. this weekend, and the reality is they are proud, they're vocal, and what we have to understand that these racists, they are becoming even more emboldened because their patron saint, Donald Trump, says we're good.
And they still have to hide their faces. So that tells you a lot, because what you're scared of, if you're so bold and you're so-called supreme, show your face. And apparently they don't know about the history, because they came here to America on a ship. They slaughtered the native people who were here, and they believe that they are the true Americans. And again, we have to really pay attention, because this is something that is growing. It is growing, and we have to be prepared for it any way that we need to, you know what I'm saying? But again, these are cowards. Look at them. Their faces are covered. If they're so bold and so bad, why don't they show who they are?
Well, you're absolutely right. And look, I mean, the bottom line is, these folks are going to continue to do what they do. And again, they're being emboldened by their supporters in the Republican Party, Julian. And I mean, that's just a fact.
Well, emboldened and basically rallying around, like they're the money that the man who killed Jordan Neely, I'm not even going to call his name. I'm not even going to call his name. But the murderer who killed Jordan Neely, he's got GoFundMe pages, millions being raised for him to assist him with his legal defense. And so basically, they are trying to rewrite a narrative that we reject. We have to continue to reject the narrative. And I like what Sister said about them covering their faces. This is a throwback to the Ku Klux Klan and the pillowcases on their head. I guess they were pillowcases, I don't know. But in any case, we see is our country in crisis. And the National Urban League's State of Black America this year really lifted up the whole threat in terms of white extremist terrorism. And we see it time and time again in cities all over the country. And then you see these broken Black people. Broken. We should be empowered. That pain should turn into power. It should make us want to fight more and harder, because if we don't fight, we are going backwards. 22 states now, laws against teaching critical race theory. I don't know how many states have eroded the Voting Rights Act and more. They are attempting to go back to the 18th century, frankly, and we aren't going back.
Yep, that is how they're operating. And look, we're going to continue to do what we do. And so we're going to break this thing down further. I'm going to talk about, again, the folks at Fox News who somehow believe that President Biden, how dare he speak about white supremacy at Howard University. Wait until we share with you some of the nonsense these people said. Clearly, these people are not the brightest bulbs in dark rooms. They probably haven't read any American history. We'll try to break it down for you. You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network.
It's a pivotal time. I remember Kevin Hart telling me that. He's like, man, what you doing, man? You got to stay on stage. And I was like, yeah, well, I'm young, thinking, like, I'm good. And he was absolutely right.
What show was the other time?
This was one-on-one.
Got it.
During that time.
So you're doing one-on-one, going great, you making money, you like...
I'm like, I don't need to leave. I don't need to leave from, Wednesday, Thursday to Sunday. I just, didn't want to do that. You know, it was just like, I'm gonna stay here. Or I didn't want to finish work Friday, fly out, go do a gig Saturday, Sunday. I was like, I don't have to do that. And I lost a little bit of that hunger that I had in New York. I would hit all the clubs, running around. Sometimes me and Chappelle, or me and this one or that one, we'd go to the Comedy Cellar at 1 in the morning. And I mean, that was our life. We loved it. You know, you do 2 shows in Manhattan, go to Brooklyn, leave Brooklyn, go to Queens, go to Jersey. And I got complacent. I was like, I got this money, I'm good. I don't need to go chase that, because that money wasn't at the same level that I was making, but what I was missing was that training.
Yes.
Was that.
And it wasn't the money.
It was the money. You know, it was that's what I needed.
Next, right here on The Frequency, the woman they call the Gifted Eye, hip-hop celebrity photographer Coy Soldier. She's the master storyteller that captured the history of hip-hop through the lens of her camera.
Tupac comes out, the next thing you know, you didn't know who they were at first. You just seen all these dudes just come rushing the stage. Then you realize Biggie gets a bottle of champagne, he pops it open, sprays it on the crowd, he drinks the bottle.
Coy Soldier, the hip-hop celebrity photographer, joining me right here on the next episode of The Frequency on the Black Star Network.
Hi, I'm Anthony Brown from Anthony Brown and Group Therapy.
Hi, I'm BB Winans.
Hey, I'm Donnie Simpson.
What's up? I'm Lance Gross, and you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
Let's get it. All right, folks, on Saturday at the Capital One Arena here in Washington, D.C., President Joe Biden spoke at the commencement for Howard University. I was in attendance there. My niece, Faith Marshall, she graduated, and so was there shooting video and photos for her, and it was pretty cool. A number of people were there in attendance there. First of all, President Biden was honored with an honorary degree along with Congressman Jim Clyburn and a number of others. Actor Wendell Pierce had a cousin who was there. Actor Roger Guinevere Smith had a nephew who was graduating as well, and so a number of people who were in the house. During his speech, President Biden talked about what his administration has accomplished that impacts African Americans, but he also talked about the threat in America when it comes to racism and white supremacy.
We know that American history has not always been a fairy tale. From the start, it's been a constant push and pull for more than 240 years between the best of us, the American ideal that we're all created equal, and the worst of us, the harsh reality that racism has long torn us apart. It's a battle that's never really over. But on the best days, enough of us have the guts and the hearts to stand up for the best in us, to choose love over hate, unity over disunity, progress over retreat, to stand up against the poison white supremacy, as I did my inaugural address, to single out as the most dangerous terrorist threat to our homeland is white supremacy. I'm not saying this because I'm at a black HBCU. I say it wherever I go. To stand up for truth over lies, lies told for power and profit. To confront the ongoing assault to subvert our elections, suppress our right to vote.
Some students were protesting. About 15 students protested. About 50 students protested Biden's speech. Some of them were carrying signs saying Biden and Harris do not care about black people. Also carrying signs that said a young black man was lynched. Speaking of Jordan Neely. That's Channing Hill. I remember she never seen her. She, of course, was one of the leaders of the protest at Howard when it came to the dormitories there. And so those students stood up, turned their backs to the president. Again, some held signs, others were simply on their phones, again, as a sign of protest. Now, so Biden comes there and he speaks about this whole issue. Folks at Outnumbered on Fox News, oh, they were not happy at all that Biden had dared talk about white supremacy. And so they literally had one of the dumbest, I mean, one of the dumbest conversations you have ever heard. And so I just want, y'all know a lot of times I just ignore these stuck on stupid people, but I just really had to deconstruct the sheer stupidity that I saw and heard today. Roll it.
One of the problems with this is that he thinks because he is in front of a black audience that he can just say whatever he wants. I don't ever remember him saying with such specificity any of this in front of a white audience, but maybe we missed that day. Maybe it happened in Delaware on one of those mystery weekend getaways.
Stop. Harris, as a black woman, you should be ashamed of yourself. You absolutely should be ashamed of yourself. First and foremost, it's abundantly clear you've never actually followed Joe Biden when it comes to speaking. That's just one. Two, I thought you were a so-called news anchor, and so you're trying to throw some shade about his mystery weekends in Delaware. No, it's called actually going home for the weekend. What's also silly with your comments, Harris, as one of the few black people on air there at Fox News, you didn't listen to the speech, nor did you read it. Because if you actually did, and again, I was there, you would have realized that Biden, talked about student loan debt, talked about police reform and accountability, and a host of other issues. But see, you, he thinks he can say whatever he wants. Well, actually, Harris, when you're the president, you typically can say whatever you want. Now, I've actually given 20 commencement addresses. I don't know about you. I don't know who's ever invited you to speak at a commencement. And guess what? In all 20, I kind of said what the hell I wanted to say. Yep, sure did. So it's called commencement speaker prerogative. So you may know nothing about that, Harris. So keep rolling it.
But this is really important because there is domestic terrorism in our country, and you can look at the facts and see where that's coming from. You can also say that two things are true. Things can be a problem without being the number one or the only problem. But right now, our sovereignty is at stake. Right now, people are still fighting high prices of things. Like we're in the midst of history making for all the wrong reasons. The blacks in that audience care about that. You don't think that we care about the economy?
Of course.
I mean, come on, you don't have to victimize us to reach us, but that's what he does. No one's putting us in chains.
That's a great point. And look, come back.
That was just stupid, Harris. I mean, that was just some dumb shit you just said right there. Okay? The director of the FBI, Harris, has gone before Congress on numerous occasions and actually said the number one national security threat is white domestic terrorism. Oh, I noticed how you didn't want to say white. I noticed, Harris, how you just conveniently didn't say white. I noticed that. I noticed how you were just so bothered by the speech, and then you were so bothered by the speech, Harris, that there's so many other issues. See, I love it when you're a president who's talking about white supremacy, and you as a black woman go, but why you got to bring that up? Why can't you talk about some other stuff? No. Why don't we stick to the white supremacy part? See, that's why for some folk, it becomes an embarrassment, if you will, for black people to have you sitting up there, Harris, just saying just dumb shit. Just dumb. Just dumb. And then you also show your sheer ignorance, Harris Faulkner, when you clearly never read it. You clearly never listened to it. In the speech that I heard, because I was actually there, he actually talked about a number of issues. In fact, do y'all see my iPad? Okay, let me see if, not sure why it's not showing up. Let me try to, because see, again, folk, we only showed you $1:27 of the speech. But what we didn't show you was all of it. Now, we live streamed it. On the Black Star Network. So if you actually want to hear the full speech, you can actually hear the full speech. And we did that because, again, when you're a credible news organization like we are, and Harris Faulkner's Fox News, they're not credible at all. They don't bother to do those things. And so in his particular speech, Biden talked about Mother's Day, things they went through. He mentioned South Carolina State. He mentioned the other honorees and talked about them. And then also, as you go through this, he shouted out the Divine Nine in the speech. He talked about a number of things, including the first black vice president, the first black female vice president, Howard U. graduate, showed them some love as well. In the same speech, he talked about the first African-American woman, who got on the Supreme Court. Yep, talked about that. Talked about the issue of violence in the country. Go to my iPad, come on. So he talked about, look at this here right here, y'all. He talked about Charlotte and the crazy neo-Nazis and the white supremacists. Yep. See, he talked about all that sort of stuff like that, fighting against those forces. In the same speech, y'all, he talked about the history of this country and what we must deal with, the history in this country, dealing with lies, talked about record turnout, voter suppression, political violence, mentioned the bomb threats that were against HBCUs all across the country, talked about putting democracy on the ballot, talked about, I'm sorry, Harris said, didn't Harris say, well, there are other things that are so crucial that black people care about? He didn't mention those things. He sat here and said, for affordable health care and housing, the right to raise your family, retire with dignity, stand up against gun violence in this country, stand up against books being banned and black history erased. Yeah, I kind of see that kind of stuff in the speech. He also, I'm just scrolling right here as he walks through it, talks about the sinister forces, talked about what they have to do as a graduating class, and what he said, with your voices and votes, I was able to feel my commitment to put the first black woman on the Supreme Court of the United States. Talked about the judicial nominees being more diverse than ever, including African Americans. He said right here, he said, because of you, you turned out, you spoke up, you knew, you showed up, and the votes counted. That's kind of what I see. Right here, you feel the promise and the peril of climate change. Because of you, we're making the biggest investment ever in the history of the world in climate change. He talked about, I'm keeping my promise that no one should be in jail merely because of using or possessing marijuana. That got lots of applause from the audience. He talked right here about student loan debt and the impact on folks as well. He talked about how Republicans are dead set against student loan debt. He sit here here and talks about to reduce your debt service payments when you graduate, laying the whole thing out. Same Republicans are fighting those things as well. Talked about the assault weapons ban, talked about police reform and public safety, talked about these very issues. Right here, George Floyd, the bill, banning chokeholds, restricting no-knock warrants, establishing a database. It's amazing. Oh, talks about the investment to HBCUs for doctors and lawyers and judges. Yep, all that right here in the speech. $6 billion in counting to HBCUs, including to create new research and development labs and prepare students for jobs of the future in high-income fields. Cancer moonshot. Talked about those things. Talked about international diplomacy. All of us saying you're the leaders of tomorrow, but it's coming on you really quickly. Talked about all of these things. Y'all are seeing the actual speech that he gave. Talked about the danger to democracy would happen on January 6, 2021. Talked about that very issue. Issued an optimistic message for black students. Laid the whole thing out in his speech. So Harris Faulkner, what the hell are you talking about? You and your white cohort sitting on that Fox panel never bothered to actually read it or listen to it. No, you chose to get fixated on him discussing white supremacy, and then you got indignant even though your own network has had white supremacists and white nationalists on it talking about the very same thing QAnon and the Proud Boys talk about as well. I never heard your ass say nothing about Tucker Carlson, Harris Faulkner. Never heard you criticize Bill O'Reilly, Harris Faulkner.
That's right.
Never heard you question Sean Hannity, Harris Faulkner. Never heard you challenge Laura Ingraham, Harris Faulkner. I've never heard you defend black people, Harris Faulkner. And you have the audacity, the unmitigated gall, to sit on the air and lie your ass off because you couldn't bother to do some basic damn research and go to Google and type in Joe Biden and Howard's speech and read it for your damn self. Oh, I ain't done. I'm gonna go to a break, and I'm gonna come back, and I'm gonna get y'all ass even further. You watching Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network.
Get him.
On the next Get Wealthy with me, Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, nurses are the backbone of the healthcare industry, and yet only 7% of them are black. What's the reason for that low number? Well, a lack of opportunities and growth in their profession. Joining us on the next Get Wealthy is Needy Barnanilli. She's going to be sharing exactly what nurses need to do and what approach they need to take ownership of their success.
So the Black Nurse Collaborative really spawned from a place and a desire to create opportunities to uplift each other, those of us in the profession, to also look and reach back and create pipelines and opportunities for other nurses like us.
That's right here on Get Wealthy, only on Black Star Network.
I'm Faraji Muhammad, live from LA. And this is The Culture. The Culture is a two-way conversation. You and me. We talk about the stories, politics, the good, the bad, and the downright ugly. So join our community every day at 3 p.m. Eastern and let your voice be heard. Hey, we're all in this together. So let's talk about it and see what kind of trouble we can get into. It's The Culture, weekdays at 3, only on the Black Star Network.
This is Judge Mathis.
What's going on, everybody? It's your boy, Mac Wild. Hey, what's up, y'all? It's your boy, Jacob Lattimore, and you're now watching Roland Martin right now.
All right, y'all. So here's more of the sheer stupidity that they air every day on Outnumbered on Fox News channel.
he has to shore up his numbers among black voters, among young people. He was polling at about 90%, according to the Associated Press, with black voters. Now it's 60%. He has a big problem here.
58?
Perhaps he might have to go back to the well and suggest that if you are a person of a certain skin color who doesn't support him, you're not really black. Remember that?
Yes.
From 2020, you brought that up in the last hour, Harris. I'd forgotten about that quote briefly. You raised it. I'm like, oh, yeah, he did say that. I think that's a window into his mentality. Not necessarily into his heart, but into the way that his political brain works and what he's trying to do.
That's fair.
And speaking of pandering, let me just throw this right back to you. When he said, I'm not saying this because I'm here, I'm saying this everywhere I go.
Where?
Yeah, is that not a pander to that specific audience?
I think it sits next to it on like the digital Websters, maybe. Like that is exactly a pander. And when he says, I'm not just saying that to blacks at an HBCU, I'm just thinking, does he not know the B in HBCU stands for black? Like, why are you saying it twice? Like, you're really double selling this. You're really trying to put this out there. And by the way, there are a lot of people who teach at HBCUs. Who knows who was in that audience?
Yeah.
I mean, we don't know. In my own household, there are people who look like you. So I'm just wondering, and I'm pointing to Guy in case you didn't see that.
Good-looking household.
Yeah, well, I think he's cute myself. My kids are cute. But
Harris, let me help you out. I know you're married to a white man, Harris, but trust me, I think the white professors at Howard University know a hell of a lot more about black culture and what's happening with their black students at the Mecca than you and your husband do. Press play.
Point with this is that if you wouldn't say it to everybody, why are you only saying it to a certain audience?
I think his commitment to unity lasted the end of that sentence because we've seen nothing but divisiveness and exactly the kind of stoking and incendiary rhetoric coming from him this entire time. I thought that speech was fantastically degrading. It is so degrading to paint a portrait based on an assumption of the box checked by everyone sitting there and their families, and essentially that there is apparently zero drop of anything else impacting those families, that the most important thing facing them is this enemy. And that will somehow define their trajectory, define their existence by the existence of something else. I know when I graduated college in my commencement speech, I was looking for inspiration. I would think for my president, I would be looking for policy. I would want to know exactly how my community could be lifted up, how that tide rises to lift up all boats, the kind of things where when I walk out of there, I feel more educated, more inspired, more equipped for my divine assignment. Instead, after that, I would feel victimized, I would feel afraid, I would feel judgmental and critical of my neighbor based on a box they checked. This commander-in-chief is anything but a unifier, and that speech was appalling.
Well, Lisa...
Okay, that's because you're a dumbass woman. You're a dumbass white woman. That's because you're just dumb. I mean, you literally didn't even read the speech. You literally didn't even listen to it. All of y'all sound like some idiots. We actually ran the speech. I scrolled through the entire speech. He literally challenged the Howard students to be the next generation of doctors and lawyers and scientists. And you yahoos sit on Fox News and lie, but you know what? That's no shock, because you just paid $787.5 million to Dominion because your ass was lying with Donald Trump about the election. All of you are idiots. Every single one of you, the black and the white ones, the white man and the white women and the black woman. The fact that you will knowingly lie to your audience when literally the speech is there for anybody to see shows not a single one of you have any integrity, credibility, morals, values, or principles, because a basic fact check exposes your lies. Y'all, we ain't done. Wait till this next fool talks. Y'all watch this one.
Told me during the commercial break she was really feeling unity in Joe Biden's America.
I was saying it as a joke, as we all know. He's the most divisive president, in American history. But the point is...
Stop right there. Stop right there. Oh, my God. No. You're right there, right there. Please, put her dumb ass in a 2 box. Y'all, this fool just said, oh my God, he's the most divisive president in American history. On Congo, can you share with folk the absolute racists who followed Abraham Lincoln after he got assassinated? Because her dumb ass clearly ain't never heard of that racist.
Who was also Trump's favorite president. I mean, we're talking about a situation where, you know, you have Andrew Jackson, a man who sit here who said, I don't care about the Supreme Court as it relates to Native American land. I'm going to take it anyway because I got the army and they don't. That's why situations with the Freedmen Bureau never really got off track because of Andrew Jackson. I mean, this man was probably the most racist president we ever had. And then we get Trump later, who has a proud portrait of him to constantly take pictures at or stand next to while he's in the Oval Office. The fact of the matter is, we have more presidents who have been racist than not, right? And so when we look at it at the end of the day and we're coming to Biden, anything that goes against a white extremist, white pride narrative is considered divisive, period, bottom line. And that's why this really ties into your first segment, because every single step that they, I mean, look, just today, Paul Gosar was found to have a neo-Nazi as part of his staff. Everything they do is about uplifting white supremacy. And so anything that speaks against that is going to be a threat. And furthermore, Roland, to your point, the fact that they don't even care about what's presented, they don't care about reading the stories, they don't care about reading what was actually in the speech. All they want to do is bring him down for anything. I mean, look, the fact of the matter is, in his first presidential campaign ad, when he ran a few years ago, and his recent one, white supremacy was right there in the ads. Everywhere he's gone, he said, I'm running because of what happened in Charlottesville. And so he literally does talk about this everywhere he goes. Presidential debate, called out Trump, which is what led Trump to say, stand back and stand by. So their ignorance is why Tucker Carlson was found to not even be able to be called a credible news source.
But here's the deal.
This is who they are, and you are exposing them 100%.
But here's the deal. Okay, so he said this here. Pamela, please share with our folk about that racist Herbert Hoover who led the lily white faction of the Republican Party.
You know, there's some reason why we don't want to know the truth. We want to find anti-black people who will speak and just say anything, trying to indoctrinate people. Understand what this term means, that the Republicans are using all the time. It means to keep telling something to the point where people don't criticize it and don't check the facts. Look at what these people have done historically and are still doing. White supremacy is on the rise and is everywhere, and we see it. We see it in the politics that this Republican Party is pushing in and trying to erase and to change the narrative of our history, of our story. Because, in fact, let's just erase all this. Let's take this out and let's add this and let's make people think that these were the good people and racism. Well, it doesn't exist. It doesn't bother me, really.
But when you're so dumb and say he's the most divisive in history, Julian, just explain to folk the absolute virulent racist who Woodrow Wilson was.
Oh, please. He would not have black people in the White House. He basically, explaining it, he was not only a dyed-in-the-wool racist, he had so many other issues and challenges that people who had things named after him are taking them down.
He banned black folk from being hired in the federal government. He reinstituted segregation. The man showed Birth of a Nation, that racist D.W. Griffith movie in the White House, helped promote it across the country.
Roland, black people who were civil servants lost their jobs under Woodrow Wilson. They had worked their way up, and they lost their jobs because of him. I don't understand who that little chick was. whatever she was talking about, but I don't watch Fox News, so their level of idiocy is unparalleled. I don't understand who the little Faulkner, whatever her name is, that little chick is either. But between the 5 people on that panel, I think you might have had a third of a brain, because the nonsense they were spouting, especially, Biden being the most divisive. Come on. We can look at so many others. We can look at Richard Nixon with his Southern strategy. We could we could go further back. We could just go president by president by president.
See, that's my whole point. But see, the problem is when one of these idiots, when they get up here and they say, "Oh my God, he was the most divisive ever," it's because their audience, they haven't read, they don't know, and so again, what she said was a flat-out, undeniable, easily proven lie. All right, let me go back to lying-ass Harris Faulkner. Harris Faulkner, who I know, I can text her lying ass right now. Harris Faulkner said, "Oh, Joe Biden brought these things up. Has he ever said that in front of white people?" Henry, yes. Go to my iPad.
Here she is. Come on up, Don. Bill Macari, Joseph Borgen, Race Bouillon.
Oh, hold up right there. Oh, Lord, please, can you give it to me right here, please? Because I just want to make sure, okay? I don't wear glasses. There's somewhat of a glare on my monitor here, but I got damn good eyesight. It looking like a lot of white people in this audience. I'm sitting. White. Let me go over here. White. Do y'all know what this is? This is called the United We Stand Summit, taking action to prevent and address hate-motivated violence and foster unity. This is also called Harris Faulkner is a damn lie. She said, Biden, has he ever addressed these things in front of white people? Harris, these people look like the person you're married to.
Ooh.
Those are your words. So this is what happens, Harris, when you go on the air and make an ass out of yourself and just straight up and lie. Because he said these things in front of black people. I mean, so I don't recall him saying these things in front of white people. Joe Biden said, I've talked about it. That's what he said. And so you're sitting here mad because he brought it up, and what you're trying to do, you want to sit here and use black people as your foil when you didn't even bother, Harris, to actually check the facts. Yep. May 17th, 2022, President Joe Biden on Tuesday called on Americans to reject the poison of white supremacy and urged lawmakers to ban weapons of mass destruction. That's from roll call, May 17th. See, matter of fact, let me see if I can get this here straight. Henry, do you see my iPad here? Good. Pull it up. See, this is for Harris Faulkner, who clearly don't do no damn research. Y'all, let me show you how easy this is. I went to Google and I typed in Joe Biden discusses white supremacy. Y'all saw how easy that was? Do you see what came up? What came up was, oh, damn. It came up, his Howard University speech. Oh, it talked about remarks of Joe Biden. Right here. What is this? Is this the State of the Union? Oh, y'all, control room, can y'all please pull up some video of the State of the Union? Because I recall there were a lot of white people who were sitting in that audience. I don't think that was an all-black audience. Maybe Pamela Omakongo or Julian got some different information on that one. But last I checked, that's a pretty damn white room. And so according to this here search, which came up #1, Biden mentioned white supremacy in his State of the Union address. I think a lot of white people also happen to be watching the State of the Union. So for Harris Faulkner to suggest that, oh, Biden has never talked about these things in front of white people, my God, it's amazing how Google can just make you look like a damn fool. This is literally the speech right here, y'all. So let me just go on back, okay? Right here. I told y'all, right here, boom. Oh my God. April 28th, 2021. Oh, watch. Biden said during his first joint session, joint address to Congress, white supremacy is the most lethal threat. Oh my God, were all those white people there? Oh, look at this. Lord have mercy. Biden said on April 20, he said that white supremacy is the most lethal threat to the homeland today. You know what? Since we're here, just go ahead and play it.
Determined to be the most lethal terrorist threat to the homeland today.
Oh, let's run it back.
What our intelligence agencies have determined to be the most lethal terrorist threat to the homeland today. White supremacy is terrorism. We're not going to ignore that either. My fellow Americans, look, we have to come together to heal the soul of this nation.
Oh, so Harris, I'm confused. I'm confused when you say, he's pandering to black people. He brought those things up in front of us, and he hasn't brought those things up in front of white. Oh, my goodness. Y'all, that was on April 28th, 2021. Lord have mercy. Right here. President Biden calls white supremacy a poison when he went to Buffalo, y'all, in May 2022. Ain't that something? He said it right here when he went to Buffalo. Let me keep going. Right here, y'all can pull it up right there. This is when, you know what? What the hell? Just go ahead and play it. Let's just play it.
White supremacy is a poison. It's a poison running through it really is. Running through our body politic. And it's been allowed to fester and grow right in front of our eyes.
I'm just wondering, were there any white people in the audience there in Buffalo? Yeah, I think there were. See, y'all, what I'm doing is I'm showing you what happens when liars lie on television and just make stuff up, and their dumb, largely white conservative audience on Fox News eats it up thinking that they're telling the truth. You know what? Just for shits and giggles, give me a little bit more of the idiots from Fox News.
Pit neighbor against neighbor, people against the other. That is the point of this. Like every Marxist before him, you have to have someone to blame. You have to intentionally divide society. He did this during COVID with the unvaccinated like me, trying to say, hey, don't spend Christmas with your unvaccinated family member. They're dangerous. They're unclean. He did this heading into the midterm elections with ultra MAGA, standing with the military flanked behind him, labeling 75 million Americans as enemies of the state. And now he's just doing it with white people. And the sad part is, and the irony of it, is that Joe Biden has probably made some of the most racist statements of any president in American history, whether it was palling around with segregationists, whether it was saying that Obama was the first black American who's bright, articulate, and clean, whether it was saying he didn't want his kids to grow up in a racial jungle, whether it was saying that you have to have an Indian accent to go into or work at a 7-Eleven or go into a 7-Eleven, whichever it was.
Offensive.
So, I mean, so he has actually made blatantly racist statements, but then he has the audacity to sit there and intentionally divide Americans because guess what? Rome is burning and the country is a mess, and he's trying to prevent a distraction and have a group of people for everyone to blame for their problems.
And by the way, just very quickly.
Stop right there. I do not want y'all to miss what she just said. He wants a group of people to blame someone else for their problems. I do not want y'all to miss what she just said. See, the reason we do these deconstructions is because the other folk just sort of play a little clip. But right there, she said what her intention was. You people, you're blaming someone else for your problems. It's your problem when it comes to crime. It's your problem when it comes to criminal justice. It's your problem when it comes to education. You're trying to blame somebody else for all of your problems, as if the federal government did not sanction redlining, as if the federal government did not have laws that prevented black people from owning banks, as if the federal government did not prevent black people from living in public housing. That's what led to the race riots in Detroit, in Chicago, and other places. As if the federal government and the state governments and the county governments and the city governments did not play a role in the present day conditions of black folks all across this country. What you're seeing are a group of white people on Fox News and a black apologist on Fox News literally lie to their audience and paint a picture that the only thing Joe Biden talked about in his speech at Howard University on Saturday, the only thing he talked about was white supremacy. When we have now shown you the facts, go to my iPad, 2019 during the campaign. Biden says Trump fans flames of white supremacy as Democrats attack racism. This took place right here. Here he was speaking. Oh my God. Look at this here, y'all. Let me just go ahead and read it. In both clear language and in code, this president has fanned the flames of white supremacy in this nation. Biden, the former vice president, said in a speech in Burlington, Iowa. Come. You know, matter of fact, you know, just go ahead and I leave it on my racial makeup of Burlington, Iowa. Well, damn, y'all. Joe Biden gave a speech in Burlington, Iowa that is comprised of 86.63% white people. And Harry, matter of fact, control room, see if y'all can find video of that speech. I just want to see, because 8.25% of Burlington is black. So the way Harry's talking, every Negro in Burlington, Iowa was at that speech and nobody else was there. I got a feeling that if he gave a speech in a city that's 86% white, it was a good number of white people who were in the audience. To everybody who's watching and listening, what I've just laid out to you is how white mainstream media uses white voices and black faces in white spaces to construct a flat-out lie. And so now what they have done, they have now said Biden went to Howard and all he did was talk to the black folks like they were victims. See, that's what happened. And then you had a little white woman in the green. He was trying to blame somebody else for their problems. When he literally said to those students, you can change America. Y'all, it's in the speech. He literally challenged them to save America, to save the democracy, to save the republic, for them to be the best they can be. Not one person on Fox News would say that. It is because, and I keep trying to tell y'all, the job of Fox News and Newsmax and One America News and The Blaze and conservative talk radio. It is to push the buttons of white fear, because they know the only way they can win is if when they are getting rid of ballot drop boxes, and when they are keeping folks from voting and voter ID, and if they scare white people into voting. That's why they hate diversity, equity, inclusion. That's why they hate multiculturalism. That's why they cannot stand anything that speaks to black people and Latino people and Asian people, Native American people, non-white people from being able to benefit in this society. See, they ain't gonna show you Biden talking to all them white folks in 2019 discussing white supremacy. Press play while I talk. See, facts are facts, y'all. They sitting right here. What you have just heard me do is literally take every single lie from Harris Faulkner and Kayleigh McEnany and Guy Benson and her. I want to name check everybody. I want to name check everybody. Give me the other two names while I'm looking for them right now. Give me the other two names. Lisa, what the hell is her name? I don't know. Again, y'all give me the names. Y'all, they are deliberately lying. That's why they had to pay Dominion. And I can't wait. Is it Semantic? That's the other company? I hope they take their ass to the cleaners. Lisa Booth, and who's the other person? Emily who? Emily Campagno, Lisa Booth, Kayleigh McEnany, Guy Benson, and Harris Faulkner. Shame on all five of y'all. And you know what? Shame on you, Suzanne Scott, the CEO of Fox News, because you knowingly allow your host to go on your network and just lie. I have debunked all their lies, and y'all ain't gonna correct it because your network is built on a lie. Because your damn show not a real news network. You're not Fox News, you're faux news. You're fake. You are truly fake news. Because that segment was simply gutter trash and a flat out lie. And specifically, Harris Faulkner, shame on you, because you know better, or at least you should. You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network, where we check facts before we speak. Back in a moment. When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Check some money orders. Go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is roland@rolandsmartin.com.
On a next, A Balanced Life with me, Dr. Jackie. What does it mean to actually have balance in your life? Why is it important, and how do you get there? A masterclass on the art of balance. It could change your life.
Find the harmony of your life. And so what beat can you maintain at a good pace? What cadence can keep you running that marathon? Because we know we're going to have, high levels, we're going to have low levels, but where can you find that flow, that harmonious pace?
That's all next on A Balanced Life on Black Star Network.
Hi, I'm BB Winans.
Hi, I'm Kim Burrell.
Hi, I'm Carl Payne.
Hey, everybody, this is Sherry Shepherd. You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered, and while he's doing Unfiltered, I'm practicing the wobble.
So apparently Greg Gutfeld on Fox News is the five brought up the whole white supremacy thing again. I'm going to roast his ass tomorrow. Let's talk about this here, folks. Last week, you might remember, we told you the story of Andrew Gillum and one of his associates being found not guilty on one charge. The jury was deadlocked on the others. Well, today, federal prosecutors put forth a motion in the courtroom announcing they are not going to retry Andrew Gillum, the 2018 Democratic nominee for Florida governor, and of course, Sharon Letman Hicks, his longtime associate. Again, the U.S. attorney announced that they were going to retry them on the indictments of diverting tens of thousands of dollars in campaign contributions for personal use. But today, they asked the judge to dismiss the remaining corruption charges against them. Prosecutors said, again, they intended to retry them, but reversed their decision. The judge did not immediately rule on the motion today, but generally judges give following the judges normally follow the prosecution's lead. Here is the real deal here, Congo. You know what happens when they have a hung jury. The prosecutors go in and they go talk to the jurors. They went and had those conversations, and the jurors were like, y'all case ain't shit. Your case is trash. And some of them even talked about how it was grossly confusing. And they were like, seriously, they on trial for this here? They knew they could not convict them because this jury said the charges were pretty much bogus, and they were not going to get a second jury to believe them.
And that's why I'm glad that Gillum fought this, because we know that in Florida, with Ron DeSantis and the hold that he has over all areas of politics down there, he's going to do anything to make sure that any potential future opponent, just like he was his past opponent, right, is going to be smeared and defamed in some way, shape, or form. And so for Gillum to go out and make sure, he could have taken some type of plea or just something to kind of stay, below the radar and maybe not make a public face for himself again with a trial like this. It speaks a lot to his character, and people can talk about issues in the personal life. Those are personal issues. But when you have a governor and when you have these Republicans there who are really out to target any person who could be a potential threat to him, I think he lost by 34,000 votes or something to DeSantis. He tried to go after him, and he tried to make it so that he couldn't come back hard. And so I'm hoping that Gillum takes this and uses to motivate himself and fortify himself to maybe give it another run in some way, shape, or form in Florida, because I do believe that he was a rising star, and I feel like given everything that's going on there, he can still do a lot of good in that state. And so to get out there and not give up and not give in, knowing that they were never going to stop trying to smear him, I commend him for his fortitude.
Normally in these type of cases, Julian, and we know, federal authorities, it's typically guaranteed they're going to get a conviction. I mean, their conviction rate oftentimes, one of the reasons their conviction rate is so high because folks simply plead guilty because they don't want to face the United States government. This is a case where they said, no, we're going to fight you, and the government lost, and now they got egg on their face. Like a fool. Just like, listen, Brian Benjamin, they had charged him, forced him to resign as lieutenant governor of New York, and then what happened? Had to drop the charges, and so his name is now sullied. He's no longer lieutenant governor, and so this is what happens. And so this is where he said, if you know you didn't do it, damn it, you got to fight.
Andrew Gillum he's a hero to me for any number of reasons. He did so well in that gubernatorial, like Congo said, 34,000 votes off of toppling DeSantis. But even more than that, he's a smart brother with a lot of integrity, a lot of policy ideas, a lot of good sense. They really threw a bathtub at a drizzle, if you will. They just threw the book at him because they could. And so I commend him for standing up and standing in his truth and in his innocence. The jury couldn't figure it out because the prosecutor couldn't figure it out. But, what we have to say, I just admire the young brother so very much for so many things, but especially for his integrity here. And again, what we know about prosecutorial discretion is they can go after who they want to. They can choose to ignore who they want to. That's why the former president took him forever to get convicted on anything. But in any case, that discretion often works against black people, and we know that.
Look, here's the thing here, Doc. Marilyn Mosby is dealing with this crap right now. The U.S. attorney in Maryland is trying to go after her for saying she withdrew money early from her own retirement account. That, like, y'all spending that time, and so and here's what they do. It leaves for you to rack up hundreds of thousands of dollars in legal bills, leaves you in debt, even if you are acquitted.
Exactly.
Dr. Hill, go ahead.
Yes, there has always been an effort to remove Black folk who are in political positions or seeking. There was a time, you may remember, when a majority of Black council persons were being investigated. They went into their offices and went through their things, and it's just this fear that if these people get up in office, if these Black folks who have integrity, who are honest and who care about their communities get into these positions, we're going to see these changes. And so you have these other folks who are trying their best to find whatever they can to knock us down. But as you can see, we keep coming back, and I am so elated to know that we see people like this brother who stand up, who speak out, and it encourages other young people who want to run for office to have a path to follow, to know what they need to do. So it's very encouraging, again, that he didn't back down. He stood up and said, come on, you're going to have to fight me, and I'm ready.
Oh, absolutely. And so, again, they now get to move forward. And so hopefully they will be able to recover from this, because typically, again, when they come after you, you have mountains of debt and legal bills. And unlike when a white man kills a Black man on a subway station, you don't have $2 million that's raised by folk for your legal defense fund. And then you don't have folks like Governor Ron DeSantis tweeting out, hey, kick them some money to defend themselves in court. Literally, Daniel Penny has raised more than $2 million through his GoFundMe, and folk like Governor Ron DeSantis actually posted on social media for folks to give to this man's legal defense fund for choking a Black man to death. And the fools at Fox News don't think whiteness is real. You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network.
Next on the Black Table with me, Greg Carr, we look at one of the most influential and prominent Black Americans of the 20th century. His work literally changed the world. Among other things, he played a major role in creating the United Nations. He was the first African American and first person of color to win the Nobel Peace Prize. And yet today, he is hardly a household name. We're talking, of course, about Ralph J. Bunche. A new book refers to him as the absolutely indispensable man.
His lifelong interest and passion in racial justice, specifically in the form of colonialism. And he saw his work as an activist and advocate for the Black community here in the United States as just the other side of the coin of his work trying to roll back European empire in Africa.
Author Cal Rostiala will join us to share his incredible story. That's on the next Black Table, here on the Black Star Network.
Next, right here on The Frequency, the woman they call the Gifted Eye, hip-hop celebrity photographer Coy Soldier. She's the master storyteller that captured the history of hip-hop through the lens of her camera.
Tupac comes out, the next thing you know, you didn't know who they were at first. You just seen all these dudes just come rushing the stage. Then you realize Biggie gets a bottle of champagne, he pops it open, sprays it on the crowd, he drinks the bottle.
Coy Soldier, the hip-hop celebrity photographer, joining me right here on the next episode of The Frequency on the Black Star Network.
Hey, I'm Antonique Smith.
What up, Lana Well, and you are watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
A judge in Mississippi has ruled against 3 Jackson residents who filed a lawsuit challenging a House bill that would create a separate judicial and police force in the Capitol complex. Judge Dwayne Thomas said the plaintiff's claims failed on all merits. He said they could not prove beyond a reasonable doubt that the challenge provisions were unconstitutional. Under House Bill 1020, Capitol Police would be given primary jurisdiction within the expanded Capitol Complex Improvement District boundary lines. Jackson Police would have secondary jurisdiction. The bill will also place certain areas within the majority black city, most of the majority white neighborhoods, under the jurisdiction of a new court system. That new system would send those convicted of misdemeanors to state prisons rather than county jails. An appeal could be filed in this case. In a separate case, a federal judge temporarily blocked House Bill 1020 from becoming law on Friday, May 12th. U.S. District Court Judge Henry Wingate granted the NAACP's motion to block the Chief Justice from appointing judges under the law while House Bill 1020 is being challenged in court. Well, that's look, that's the battle that continues over and over and over again. There. This is also why you have to have our legal groups. This is the thing here. This is the thing right here, Pamela, that we have to recognize. And I was at the NAACP LDF dinner a couple of weeks ago. We supported laws created for civil rights under law. I don't think a lot of folks watching, a lot of black folks really understand what is happening, the work that's being put in, the fights and the battles that are happening all across this country by our legal organizations, our legal titans, Barbara Arnwine's Transforming Justice Coalition, and we could go on and on and on. I mean, these folks are doing the critical work needed, using the law to fight the racist things that are happening in this country.
Absolutely. You know, we for some reason think that we have overcome. We're not paying attention to these new Jim Crow laws that are being instituted right before our very eyes. We're so preoccupied with stuff that don't mean anything, and we really need to pay attention to these laws because they will affect us. And we're seeing it now. We have to look, you know, I mean, things like voting, of course, the constant attack against diversity and trying to erase Black history. Not granting professors tenure if they even teach it or talk about it or even mention certain words. So it's really imperative that we try to educate our communities about what's going on. And a great place to be would be in the churches. You know, our churches used to be those spaces where we could organize. We have to get back to that, and maybe, you know, have some kind of campaign where we will talk about what's going on in our communities so that we'll know what we need to do and understand how these laws will work against us.
No, absolutely. Omokongo, again, when we talk about this multi-pronged strategy, it is a battle, it is a war, and it has always been the case. Our legal minds have always been at work, just like those on the business side, just like those on the protest side, just like those who are out in the streets, in the suites. And so when we talk about how we change Black America for the future, it literally is going to require all of our forces moving, as Dr. King said on April 3rd, 1968, operating as a collective.
Absolutely, and being involved in all things relating to law is an extreme part of the process. You know, unfortunately, the only times you really hear things on television outside of the Black Star Network relating to Black lawyers is when we're dealing with a situation of an unarmed shooting of a Black person by the police, and we have people like, you know, the great Lee Merritt and the great Ben Crump on the air, and of course they need to have their stories continue to be magnified in terms of the work they're doing. But you're absolutely right in terms of the work of the Legal Defense Fund. You know, Jay-Z has an organization that's dealing with, it has a legal team as well. And really, at the end of the day, if we don't get more sophisticated with the law and support the people in our community who are actually doing this work, who already have the knowledge, I hope that this Mississippi case on appeal, maybe they'll start to tighten some of the, you know, get the case a little bit tighter and come back again. But if we don't do that, we are going to lose, because time and time again, from the local level up to the Senate, Roland, these Republicans have shown that they have been willing or able to outfox us in many ways, pun intended, on some of these legal issues. And even with the situation with Feinstein, they couldn't even replace her because Republicans wouldn't allow a vote to have her be temporarily replaced. They understand this stuff at a deeper level than many of us have shown. Even with the election of Donald Trump, many of us knew, the Republicans knew it was about the Supreme Court. They hated him, but they knew it was about the Supreme Court and federal judges and these local judges. The Heritage Foundation has a list of judges that they want approved. And so really at the end of the day, I'm so glad you brought this up, because we need to support those of us putting in serious work in the legal profession to be able to successfully challenge these laws. And if we don't do that, then they're not going to get the support that they need. And these types of folks are going to keep on winning in places like Jackson, in Flint, and other places across the country. They already got the legislation written. They already got the policies written. We need to support the legal minds going right back at them.
Julian.
I agree with Obakongo completely. We basically have not been, first of all, supportive of our legal infrastructure. The Legal Defense Fund, Barbara Arnwine, Lawyers Committee, they're all, they're on the bag all the time. They get some foundation support, but just like people give money in church, give money, we should be giving money to our legal infrastructure. The second thing I would say is that we see this tricky nonsense that these Republicans are fooling with, and we don't talk about it enough. The gerrymandering, I bet you if you polled 20 black people, 2 of them would know what gerrymandering is. And I'm not saying that people are ignorant. I'm saying that people choose not to know. We choose not to know. The Jackson case is so extremely egregious to just create a new legislative district, which increases the penalties that people will have to spend for a misdemeanor. As opposed to going to jail, you're going to go to the penitentiary. That's absurd. But this is, again, we're going back to the 1850s, 1860s, if not earlier than that. So we have to, we shout out the Ben Crumps and the Barbara Arnwines, but we dig down. There's some other basically stellar lawyers doing the local stuff that's really important. The folks in Jackson and the NAACP Legal Defense and Education Fund, well, they don't call themselves that anymore, but anyway, I call it that. They basically deserve our full support, as does the big NAACP. We've got to do better, folks. If we don't do better, let's fast forward 10 years and see where black people are. We ain't gonna like it.
Indeed. Time for Black and Missing. Do we have sound of Brandon Johnson? Kayla Washington has been missing from her homestead Florida home since May 4th. The 17-year-old is 5 feet 1 inches tall, weighs 109 pounds, with black hair and brown eyes. Anyone with information about Kayla Washington should call the Homestead, Florida Police Department at 305-247-1535, 305-247-1535. Folks, today Chicago swore in its 57th mayor. Brandon Johnson took the oath of office today, where hundreds of people flocked to the Credit Union One Arena on Monday to watch him. A union organizer and county commissioner, also former public school teacher, sworn in as the mayor of Chicago.
The soul of Chicago tells us we will never close our doors to those who come here in search of a better life. For as scripture says, I was hungry and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger and you invited me in. I needed clothes and you clothed me. I was sick and you looked after me. I was in prison and you came to visit me. That has always been the soul of Chicago, and it will always be the soul of Chicago. We know the strength of a city is determined by how we treat the most vulnerable. And so we choose to be a strong city. We must reject a zero-sum formulation between investing in those who have been here for decades and supporting those who have been sit here on a bus even this morning. We can do both, Chicago, and we can all thrive together.
Got a tough job on his hands trying to convince these aldermen that he does not have ulterior motives. They got major issues dealing with budgets and pensions. Also, they'll be hosting the 2024 Democratic National Convention in Chicago. He also has to appoint a new Chicago police superintendent. And again, the city has been struggling with issues such as crime in bad schools. Over this past weekend, 25 people were shot in Chicago. 6 were killed, according to cops. He's got one hell of a tough job, Pamela.
Well, yes, and I think that, of course, his background, particularly working in education, he'll have a different perspective on how to deal with things. And it sounds like he really has a lot of support. And I'm glad to hear someone say that we're going to open our arms to everyone, because that's what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to give, and we receive that. And I hope that, he doesn't fall down. I hope that there are people around him to make sure that he's supported. And we just have to wait and see what happens. But he sounds like he is going to make an impact, positive one.
It is going to be a very tough job. But look, the voters picked him, Julian. Now it's time for him to go to work.
This is a rising star. He's amazing. I've met him several times, been on the air with him, with Reverend Jackson's radio show. What's interesting about Brandon, and this is a lesson that we can all take. A year ago, he had 2% name recognition in Chicago, 2%. And he ends up winning the mayoralty behind over a well-financed police guy, Vallis's opponent, was heavily endorsed by the police union. Mayor Johnson heavily endorsed by the teachers union, and most of his money coming from unions in terms of contributions. So police education, that lets you know where he's coming from. He does have to appoint a superintendent of the police or police chief, but that's not his number one priority. He's got a lot of priorities that he's going to have to juggle, and he's got a heck of a hard job. But I believe he's equal to it. He's a protege of Reverend Jackson's. He's just really amazing. I have very high hopes, but I agree with Pamela. It's also going to be a challenge for him to get through the aldermen, who basically are stuck on difficult. Just really are stuck on difficult. But that's always been the case in Chicago. So I just hope he does well, and I'm pretty sure he will.
Congo.
Well, I remember we had him on the show, the night before the election, and I'm remembering Eric Adams and others who have been on the show, and shout out to those politicians out there who respect the power of Black media as it relates to reaching their intended audience. When it comes to Mayor Johnson, I think that it's also important to understand that we need to have more educators, people who come from our community. Is it, Brother Jamal, the representative in New York as well, as a former educator, people who have seen what happens in our communities as it relates to violence, as it relates to underfunding, as it relates to the needs of our students to be able to come and be whole. And when I'm harping back on this education piece, because when you focus on making the schools whole, there are wraparound services that you have to bring to a community that are going to help the entire community as it relates to job creation, reduction in violence, a reduction in people who are not engaged in after school activities and the like. And this is a person who understands that. So I'm very excited about what's going to happen with Chicago. And even as it relates to the superintendent thing, Mayor Johnson is somebody who believes in having partnerships with the police and the community. And so I feel like if he continues to move forward with the support that he has, understand that he wasn't, and that's a mandate for people who got his back and want to see something better, these aldermen and these other people, there will be a challenge. But if he continues to have that city at his back, I think amazing things can happen in Chicago. And lastly, Roland, I'm very happy with the fact that he took on this issue of these migrants and these workers being bused to these cities with Black mayors, took it head on and said, hey, we are here for it, because that says more about who we are. So mad props to him and the best of luck.
All right, folks, hold tight 1 second. When we come back, Fit, Live, Win. They said the COVID emergency is over, but it is still an issue. Be sure to protect your health. We'll talk about that next on Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network.
Next, right here on The Frequency, the woman they call the Gifted Eye, hip-hop celebrity photographer Coy Soldier. She's the master storyteller that captured the history of hip-hop through the lens of her camera.
Tupac comes out, the next thing you know, you didn't know who they were at first. You just seen all these dudes just come rushing the stage. Then you realize Biggie gets a bottle of champagne, he pops it open, sprays it on the crowd, he drinks the bottle.
Coy Soldier, the hip-hop celebrity photographer, joining me right here on the next episode of The Frequency on the Black Star Network.
I'm Faraji Muhammad, live from LA. And this is The Culture. The Culture is a two-way conversation. You and me. We talk about the stories, politics, the good, the bad, and the downright ugly. So join our community every day at 3 p.m. Eastern and let your voice be heard. Hey, we're all in this together. So let's talk about it and see what kind of trouble we can get into. It's The Culture, weekdays at 3, only on the Black Star Network.
Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
My name is Charlie Wilson.
Hi, I'm Sally Richardson Whitfield.
And I'm Dondre Whitfield.
Hey, everybody, this is your man, Fred Hammond, and you're watching Roland Martin, my man, Unfiltered.
Well, the World Health Organization says COVID is no longer a global health emergency, but the numbers are still real. Here are the current stats when it comes to COVID worldwide, folks. We're talking about 106,792,474 cases. You had 1.1 million deaths since the pandemic began. Now, of course, the emergency is over, but the virus still lingers. Joining me now is Dr. Jane Morgan, the Executive Director of Piedmont Healthcare Corporation's COVID Task Force. Doc, glad to have you. I mean, the reality is, and I'll say this here, probably, look, when I fly, I still and wearing my mask. There was a study that showed that they examined fecal matter from a number of planes. 96% of what was tested, COVID was present. So that air is circulating. I'm always wearing my mask there. But it's interesting, when I've gone to other places, other outdoor events, we're not as vigilant as we used to when it comes to wearing masks and having protection. I don't actually see hand sanitizer in a lot of places like we used to. We used to be a heck of a lot more vigilant about it. But as we've gotten further and further away from 2021, things seem to be shifting.
You know, I agree, and science has certainly been overridden by a lot of other messages that have confused and conflated the message coming from public health arenas and also scientific experts like myself. And so people began to get tired, more so not from the pandemic, but began to get tired of trying to constantly figure out what they needed to do today. What do they need to do on Wednesday? Did it change from Friday? What does this mean? Now we have a new variant, and then all of the multiple messages. And unfortunately, as a scientific community, including the CDC, we never did really get ahead of communication such that people were really following sound science during communications. And so you're right, we're in an endemic state. The virus has not gone away. It certainly has dampened. We are in a much better place. The majority of Americans have some degree of immunity, either with vaccination or by contracting the virus. Unfortunately, many people have contracted it over and over and over again, which also lends to a sort of carelessness and an increase of your risk of long COVID. So you're right. Here we are. We're in a better place, but COVID has not gone away. And we have about 1,000 deaths every week still here in the United States. So that's a lot of deaths.
Look, what are other doctors saying, doctors and nurses? Are they frustrated with political leaders wanting to rush as quickly as possible back? Folks like, oh, no more shutdowns, things along those lines. What are your fellow colleagues saying?
Yeah, you know, hospitals and physicians' offices have always been open to everyone, regardless of your political affiliation, including people at the height of COVID who eschewed science and science deniers who then showed up in the emergency room sick with COVID and risked infecting those of us who were there and my colleagues and wanting help and really reaching out to the hospital, which is what? The hospital is the practical application of all the science that you are denying, but willing at that point to accept treatment and accept the latest therapies. We actually, you know, we take care of everyone. So we don't ask, what is your affiliation? We take care of everyone, even though your decisions put you in that predicament, and even though your decisions now are risking the lives of our staff. We absolutely take care of everyone. So yes, there's been a level of frustration, a level of unbelievability with what we were facing in the hospital, and then walking right outside of the hospital 1 or 2 blocks away and seeing people, you know, gathering at events and unmasking. Meanwhile, back at the hospital, we're intubating people. And so it was really in certainly at different stages of the pandemic, it was almost living in 2 different worlds, which can be very, very discouraging, that you're spending your entire day at the hospital managing and saving the lives of patients who are sick with COVID. And then you leave outside of the hospital setting, and the world doesn't seem to be aware of what's really happening.
Questions from the panel. Juliana, you're first.
Doc, thanks for your work. I really appreciate it. If COVID is not finished, we know you're talking about the deaths we're experiencing every week, what kind of precautions should people take other than continuing to wear masks? Are there other precautions in terms of large gatherings, et cetera, keeping social distance? What should people be doing?
Well, I think people should be pragmatic, know who your social circle is. If you're going into any type of event or social event and you are unclear of what everyone's vaccination or immune status is, then you just need to use your decision-making for what you're going to do. Is it going to be a tightly packed event where you literally are walking sideways to squeeze through people? Then you may want to consider a mask. Are people going to be able to move and filter freely? And so I think at this point, when we are in restaurants or we are at tables that are placed apart from one another, you don't necessarily need to wear masks. We certainly are in an endemic state, but there may be times when you want to wear masks. So for instance, if you're in an airplane, you're seated next to someone who's coughing, or you're sitting behind someone who has a chronic cough, you may want to consider what you need to do to protect yourself, because this virus is still endemic. Hopefully it will go away, but it may not. It's not consulting us, and it certainly can always evolve into something else that could be more formidable.
Omakongo.
Dr. Morgan, my question is about long COVID. You mentioned it earlier. I just feel as a layperson, I'm not hearing much about any progress as it relates to solving this issue. Are there any updates as it relates to that area?
Such an excellent question. I was just talking about that just yesterday with regard to all of these long COVID cases that we're managing, and it's a plethora of them, all different types of symptoms, from mild to people who really may end up being permanently disabled. And what are we going to do about it? And what are the combination of symptoms and problems that we see? So, for instance, we know that if people got multiple infections, they're at a greater risk of developing long COVID, and also at a greater risk of developing more severe symptoms. if their disease progress was also more severe, they seemed to be at a greater risk of developing long COVID than if they had a very mild disease process. Most people who were vaccinated, if in fact they became unlucky enough to also get COVID, generally had a mild course, and it does appear that vaccines, even if you contracted COVID, provided some protection from long COVID. So you're right. We have a lot to learn about this. This is still declaring itself. It will be a disability issue here in the United States. And right now, you're right, it's not getting the visibility that it deserves.
Pamela?
Yes, thank you. Do you think that it's a possibility that COVID can become a major epidemic again?
You know, I think we never say never. I hope not. I hope that we have really learned some hard lessons, because we learned them the hard way. I think Roland was very clear. We had over 1 million people die. That's a tough lesson. And if we choose to ignore that, then you're right. History could repeat itself. We certainly have seen many of the missteps of the CDC. And to be clear, the CDC is a governmental agency that was really designed for surveillance, for identification, for monitoring, and not for rapid mass emergency response. And yet that was what was required of it. And what we learned is that a lot of its data gathering techniques then were not appropriate when we were in an emergency. They have techniques that require time to gather data. They come from multiple sources, from multiple different digital platforms, some not digital platforms, some required approval, some didn't. It was all of this disparate use, which worked when you were just surveilling. But when we needed to respond, it doesn't work. So there are a lot of lessons learned, and I think absolutely we are vulnerable to another pandemic if we don't get a handle on social media, if we don't get a handle on messaging. And when I say that, I mean that the messenger in a scientific emergency needs to be science, needs to be the messenger, and not all types of people who may be famous or may have followers for whatever reason. Those people start to have the louder voices because they have the larger following, but they have the least amount of experience and the least amount of background, and did quite a bit of damage.
All right, then. Well, Doc, we certainly appreciate it. Thanks a lot for joining us. And again, folks, please remain vigilant because COVID is still real. We appreciate it. All right, panel, thanks a lot. Julian, Pamela, Omakongo, I appreciate y'all joining us on today's show. Thank you so very much, folks. I will see y'all tomorrow right here, Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. Greg Gutfield, Fox News, batter up, you're next.
Thank you.
I'll be here with you tomorrow. I'll see y'all then. Ho! Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Hold no punches. I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
Pull up a chair. Take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, and I have a question for you. Ever feel as if your life is teetering and the weight and pressure of the world is consistently on your shoulders? Well, let me tell you, living a balanced life isn't easy. Join me each Tuesday on Black Star Network for A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie.
We're all impacted by the culture, whether we know it or not. From politics to music and entertainment, it's a huge part of our lives, and we're going to talk about it every day right here on The Culture with me, Faraji Muhammad, only on the Black Star Network.
I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show, Get Wealthy, focuses on the things that your financial advisor and bank isn't telling you, but you absolutely need to know. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.